Most people fear the dark or what hides in the woods. But the most dangerous predators don't live in the wild. They live in corner offices. They send midnight emails. They smile at you across a conference table while they plan your professional execution. Tonight, we're looking at 5 true workplace horror stories from bosses who don't just want your labor, they want your life. Stay late at your own risk. I need to tell someone this before I lose my nerve. My boss scheduled a performance review for 7 p.m. on a Friday. That should have been the first warning. Vincent had been with the company for 14 years, Senior VP of Operations. Everyone loved him. Charismatic. Always remembered birthdays. The kind of person who'd walk through the office with coffee for random employees, asking about their kids, their weekends, their lives outside these walls. But I'd been noticing things. Small things at first. Details that didn't quite add up. The way he'd stand too close when reviewing my work. How his hand would linger on my shoulder for just a beat too long. The texts that came after midnight. Always work-related. Always urgent. Always phrased in a way that made me feel like I was the only person who could help him. I told myself I was being paranoid. This was a good job. Good pay. Benefits. I couldn't afford to mess it up. I'd been there for 8 months. Started as a project coordinator. Entry level, but with potential for growth. Vincent had been the one who interviewed me. He'd seemed impressed. Said I had the kind of drive the company needed. Said he saw himself in me when he was younger. That comment should have been a warning, too. The office was empty when I arrived that Friday. Just the hum of the HVAC system and the buzz of the fluorescent lights overhead. The cleaning crew had already been through. Everything smelled like industrial lemon cleaner and old carpet. Vincent's office was on the 3rd floor, corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the parking lot and the highway beyond. I could see from the elevator that there were only 2 cars left. Mine, a beat-up Honda Civic with a dent in the passenger door, and his black Lexus, parked in his reserved spot near the entrance. He smiled when I walked in. Wide. Warm. The same smile I'd seen him use in board meetings. "Close the door, please," he said. I did. The review started normally. Numbers, metrics, goals. He pulled up spreadsheets on his monitor, turned it so I could see. Pointed out areas where I'd exceeded expectations. Areas where I could improve. His voice was steady, professional. I started to relax. Maybe I'd been wrong about him, but then he stood up and walked around his desk. Sat on the edge of it, right in front of me. Too close. I could smell his cologne. Something expensive and suffocating. Bergamot and cedar. The kind of scent that clings to fabric. "You know what I appreciate about you?" he said. I didn't answer. My throat had gone dry. "You're ambitious. You want to move up. I can see it. The way you stay late. The way you volunteer for extra projects. That's rare. Most people just coast. Clock in, clock out. But not you." He leaned forward slightly. His knee was inches from mine. "I can help with that. Your career, your trajectory here. But you have to be willing to show dedication. Real dedication. The kind that goes beyond just doing your job." He reached out and touched my knee. Just his fingertips. Light. Almost casual. My entire body went rigid. "We could work closely together," he continued. His voice had dropped lower. "I could mentor you, one-on-one, after hours. Make sure you're getting the opportunities you deserve." I stood up so fast, my chair rolled backward and hit the wall. "I should go," I said. My voice sounded strange. distant. His expression changed. Just for a second. Something cold and flat flickered behind his eyes. The smile disappeared. His jaw tightened. Then, just as quickly, the warmth returned. He stood up, smoothed his tie. "Of course," he said. "It's late. We'll continue this Monday. Have a good weekend." I walked to the elevator. My legs felt numb. I pressed the button. Waited. The numbers above the door descended slowly. 3, 2, 1. The doors opened with a soft chime, and I stepped inside. As they closed, I saw Vincent standing in the hallway, just watching, not moving, not smiling. His hands were in his pockets. His head was tilted slightly, like he was studying me, like he was memorizing something. The elevator descended. I watched the numbers. Ground floor. The doors opened. I walked through the empty lobby, past the reception desk, past the potted plants and the corporate motivational posters, out into the parking lot. The air was cold. February. I could see my breath. I got in my car, locked the doors, sat there for 10 minutes before I could make my hands stop shaking enough to put the key in the ignition. Monday morning, I found a termination letter on my desk. It was in a plain manila envelope, my name typed on the front. Inside, a single page on company letterhead. Effective immediately. Performance issues. Budget cuts. Multiple documented concerns about work quality and professional conduct. HR had already processed it. My access card didn't work when I tried to swipe into the break room. Security escorted me out 15 minutes later. I tried to fight it. Went to HR. Filed complaints. Demanded to see the documentation they'd referenced. But Vincent had prepared everything. Emails I never sent, with my name in the sender field. Performance reviews I never saw, dated and signed. Witnesses who corroborated things that never happened. Colleagues I barely knew suddenly had detailed accounts of my inappropriate behavior, my poor attitude, my inability to accept constructive criticism. The company lawyer called it a misunderstanding of professional boundaries, said that while they appreciated my contributions, it was clear the role wasn't a good fit. They offered me 2 weeks severance if I signed an NDA and agreed not to pursue legal action. I didn't sign. I wanted to fight, but my lawyer told me the truth. They had documentation. I had my word. In cases like this, documentation always wins. That was 11 months ago. I've applied to 73 jobs since then. I count them. Keep a spreadsheet. Only 4 called me back for interviews. None led to offers. Word travels in my industry. People know people. When they call for references and hear I was terminated, they stop returning my emails. Last week, I saw a job posting for my old position. Same company, same department, same reporting line to Vincent. I called a friend who still works there. She was nervous on the phone, kept her voice low. Said Vincent hired someone new 3 months ago. 22 years old, fresh out of college, degree in communications. She said the girl seems nervous lately, jumpy. She doesn't eat lunch with the team anymore, leaves right at 5. I tried to warn her, found her on LinkedIn, sent her a message, kept it vague, just said if she ever needed to talk, I was available, that I'd worked there before, that I understood what it was like. She never responded. Then yesterday, I got a text from an unknown number. Just a photo, no message. It was me, walking to my car, taken 3 days ago, Wednesday afternoon. I recognized the location, the parking structure near my apartment. Level 2. I was carrying groceries. Looking down at my phone, below the photo, a message appeared. Careful what you say about people. Defamation is a serious crime. Harassment too. I'd hate to see you make things worse for yourself. I stared at that message for an hour. Tried to figure out how they got the photo, who took it. The angle suggested someone standing near the stairwell, waiting, watching. Where are you watching from? And are you watching alone? Subscribe and stay. I recognize the phrasing, the tone. Vincent always talked like that. Formal, precise, like he was dictating a legal document. I changed my number that night, went to the phone store, got a new SIM card, new number. Deleted my old accounts. I'm looking for a new place to live. Something farther away, maybe a different city. But I keep thinking about that girl, the new hire. I keep thinking about how Vincent is probably doing the same thing to her that he did to me. The late-night texts. The performance reviews after hours. The hand on the knee. And I keep wondering if he's watching her the same way he's watching me. I check my rearview mirror now. Every time I drive. Every time I walk to my car. I look for faces I recognize. Cars that appear too often. I sleep with my phone on the nightstand, volume up, just in case. But the worst part isn't the fear. It's knowing that he wants me to be afraid, that this is part of it. The control doesn't end when you leave. It follows you, shapes your life around the edges, makes you second-guess everything. And there's nothing I can do to stop it. I can still feel his hand on my knee, even now. Even here. And I know he wants me to remember it forever. This happened 4 years ago, but I still check my back seat before I drive. Every single time. Even in daylight. Even in parking lots with cameras. I was working night security at a manufacturing plant outside Newark. 12-hour shifts, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. The pay was decent for what it was, $18 an hour plus overtime. The work was easy. Walk the perimeter every 2 hours. Check the gates. Monitor the cameras. Log anything unusual. Most nights, nothing happened. The plant made automotive parts, pistons, engine components, things I didn't understand. The day shift was loud. But at night, the place was silent, except for the hum of machinery in the active sections and the buzz of the security monitors in the guard station. My supervisor was a guy named Trevor Coldwell, mid-50s, lean, quiet in a way that felt deliberate. He'd worked there for 26 years, started right out of high school, knew every inch of the property, every door, every camera angle, every blind spot. He never talked much, but when he did, it was always about the rules. Stay on schedule. Don't skip rounds. Log everything, even if it seems minor. Never go into the East Wing alone. The East Wing was the old section, been closed for 7 years after a fire. Some kind of electrical malfunction. No one died, but the damage was extensive. The company deemed it structurally sound enough to leave standing but never bothered reopening it. Cheaper to build new space than renovate old. Trevor was obsessed with it. Every night, without fail, he'd check the locks on the East Wing doors, the main entrance, the emergency exits, the loading dock access, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times. He'd rattle the handles, shine his flashlight through the windows, stand there for a minute, just staring into the darkness beyond the glass. "Why do you care so much?" I asked him once. It was maybe my 3rd week on the job. He looked at me like I'd said something deeply wrong. His face didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted. "Things need to stay where they belong," he said. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't ask again. One night in February, Trevor called in sick. First time in 3 years, according to the operations manager who called to tell me. No backup guard available, budget cuts. I'd handle the shift solo. No problem, right? Just follow the routine. Everything was fine. Until 2 a.m. I was doing my rounds. 2nd floor of the main building. Checking doors. Making notes on my clipboard. The air was cold enough that I could see my breath indoors. They kept the heat low at night to save money. That's when I heard it. A sound coming from the east wing. Rhythmic. Metallic. Like something heavy being dragged across concrete. Scraping. Then stopping. Then starting again. I stopped walking. Listened. The sound came again. Louder this time. More deliberate. I should have called someone. The operations manager, the local police, anyone. But I was 24 years old. Stupid. Thought maybe it was an animal that had gotten inside. Or pipes expanding and contracting. Or some piece of equipment that hadn't been fully shut down. I walked toward the east wing. The main entrance was at the end of a long hallway. Gray walls. Linoleum floors. Emergency lighting every 20 feet, casting everything in pale yellow. The door was unlocked. I know Trevor had checked it the night before. I'd watched him 3 separate times, rattling the handle, testing the deadbolt. But now the deadbolt was disengaged, and the door was open about 6 inches. Just enough to see darkness beyond. I pushed it wider. The hinges creaked. The smell hit me first. Mildew and something chemical. Burnt plastic maybe, or rubber. The hallway beyond was dark, except for the emergency exit signs, glowing red. I turned on my flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness. Dust particles floated in the light. The dragging sound came from deeper inside, down the main corridor. I followed it, past empty offices with doors hanging open, past a break room with chairs still tucked under tables, vending machines unplugged and dark. The sound got louder, more deliberate. I could hear the rhythm of it now. Drag, pause, drag, pause. I reached the end of the hallway. There was a door marked maintenance, authorized personnel only. Heavy metal, industrial. The paint was peeling near the handle. It was open. Inside was a staircase leading down. Concrete steps. Metal railing. The sound was coming from below, echoing up the stairwell. I descended. Each step creaked under my weight. The air got colder. I could see my breath in the flashlight beam. The walls were concrete, bare. No windows, no other lights except my flashlight. At the bottom, there was a long corridor with doors on both sides. Old storage, I figured. Archive space. But one door was open. Light spilled out, fluorescent, flickering. The bulbs humming. I walked toward it. My footsteps echoed. Inside was a small room, maybe 12 feet by 12 feet, concrete walls, a metal table in the center. And on the table, files. Dozens of them. Manila folders, some thick, some thin, all labeled with names. I saw my name on one, my full name, printed on a label. I opened it. Inside were photos of me, taken over the past 9 months, getting into my car after my shift, walking into my apartment building, sitting at a coffee shop on my day off. Some were taken with a long lens, slightly grainy. Others looked like they were from a phone, closer, clearer. My schedule was written out in detail on a separate sheet. My route to work, the time I left, the time I arrived, where I stopped for gas, where I bought groceries, my girlfriend's name, her address, her work schedule. There were other files too, other guards who'd worked the night shift. I recognized some of the names, people who'd quit, or been fired, or transferred to other facilities. One file had a red X drawn through the photo. The guard's name was underneath. I didn't recognize it. The date on the file was from 6 years ago. I heard footsteps behind me, slow, heavy, boots on concrete. I turned around. Trevor was standing in the doorway. He wasn't sick. He looked tired, annoyed. His arms were crossed. "You weren't supposed to come down here," he said. I backed up against the table. "What?" is this? Insurance, he said, like it was obvious. People don't understand how important routines are, how important it is to know who you're working with. I've kept this place safe for 26 years. You think that happens by accident? You think just anyone can do this job? You've been following me. Observing, he corrected. There's a difference. I need to know who's walking these halls at night. What kind of person they are. What they're capable of. Whether they can be trusted. This is illegal. This is necessary. His voice was calm. Matter of fact, do you know how many people have tried to steal from this place? How many have brought drugs in? How many have invited friends to help them break into storage? 19. Over 26 years. 19 people who thought they could get away with something because no one was watching. I tried to move past him. He blocked the doorway. He didn't touch me, didn't threaten me physically, just stood there, solid, unmoved. You're going to leave now, he said. You're going to finish your shift. Clock out at 8 a.m. like normal. And tomorrow, you're going to put in your 2 weeks' notice. You'll tell them it's personal, family reasons, health reasons, something that doesn't raise questions, and then you'll move on. Do you understand? I nodded. My mouth was dry. He stepped aside. Just enough for me to pass. I walked past him, close enough to smell coffee on his breath. Up the stairs, out of the east wing, through the main building. I didn't run. I didn't look back. I finished my rounds, logged everything as normal. At 8 a.m., I clocked out. I wrote my resignation letter that afternoon, sent it by email. 2 weeks' notice. Family health issues. Thank you for the opportunity. I never told anyone what I found. I was afraid of what Trevor would do. Afraid no one would believe me. Afraid he'd been doing this longer than I knew and had resources I couldn't imagine. My last shift was quiet. Trevor worked it with me. Didn't mention the basement. Didn't mention the files. Just did his rounds. Checked the east wing 3 times. At the end of the shift, he shook my hand. Good luck with your family situation, he said. I left. Found another job. Night stocking at a warehouse. Less pay. No benefits. But I took it. Last month, I looked up the company. They're still operating. I checked LinkedIn out of curiosity. Trevor Caldwell still works there. Still night supervisor. Still watching the East Wing. And I wonder how many others are in those files now. How many people he's observed, documented, controlled. Sometimes I get texts from numbers I don't recognize. Just a photo. Me pumping gas. Me walking my dog. Me at the grocery store. No message. No explanation. And I know he never really let me leave. Sometimes I get texts from numbers I don't recognize. Just a photo of where I am right now. And I know he never really let me leave. I got the promotion I wanted, and it destroyed my life. I worked at a consulting firm in Chicago. Mid-level analyst. 60-hour weeks were standard. 70 during busy season. The kind of place where ambition was currency, and loyalty was expected without question. My boss was a woman named Helena Marsh, partner, top biller 5 years running. She'd built her reputation on closing impossible deals and making clients feel like they were the only ones who mattered. Everyone wanted to work for her. I was lucky. That's what people told me when I got assigned to her team. Helena had a protege system. She'd pick one person every 2 years, mentor them personally, fast-track them through the ranks, introduce them to clients, give them opportunities that took others a decade to earn. 4 of her former proteges were now partners. It was the golden ticket. She chose me in June. At first, it was incredible. I was invited to client meetings that were normally reserved for senior staff. Strategy sessions, where million-dollar decisions were made. She'd ask for my input in front of executives. publicly praise my work, tell clients I was the future of the firm. I felt seen, valued, important. I was working harder than ever, but it felt worth it. This was what I'd been working towards since business school. This was the career I'd imagined. Then the texts started. Always late at night, 11 p.m., midnight, sometimes 2 a.m. Always work questions at first. Can you review this deck before tomorrow's meeting? What's your take on the Chen account strategy? But then they'd shift. Personal questions. How are you feeling? Are you eating enough? Do you need anything? She said she wanted to make sure I wasn't burning out, that she'd seen too many talented people flame out because they didn't take care of themselves. I thought it was kind, thoughtful, the kind of mentorship I'd hoped for. By August, she was calling me on weekends, asking me to review documents, attend dinners with clients. It was always urgent, always, just this once, always framed as an opportunity I shouldn't pass up. I stopped seeing my friends, stopped going to the gym. My girlfriend said I was never home, that I was different, distant. I told her this was temporary. The promotion was close. Just a few more months of proving myself. She moved out in September. Said she couldn't compete with my job. I barely noticed. In late September, Helena invited me to her lake house upstate. A weekend strategy retreat. Just the two of us. She said we needed focused time to prepare for a major pitch. 8-figure contract. If we won it, I'd be promoted to senior analyst, maybe even made a junior partner within 2 years. I should have said no, should have suggested we work at the office, should have recognized what was happening. But I didn't. The house was beautiful, modern, glass walls overlooking the water, completely isolated. The nearest neighbor was 3 miles away. No cell service. She said it was perfect for concentration. No distractions. No interruptions. We worked all day Saturday. Reviewed slides. Ran through scenarios. Practiced pitches. It felt professional. Intense, but professional. Then, Saturday night, she opened a bottle of wine. Expensive. Red. She poured 2 glasses. We drank, talked. She told me about her career, how she'd started as an analyst 23 years ago, how she'd fought for every promotion, every client, how she'd sacrificed relationships, family, her health, how lonely it was at the top, how rare it was to find someone who understood the sacrifice required. She moved closer on the couch. Her hand touched mine. "You remind me of myself," she said. Her voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. "Before I learned how things really work, before I understood what it takes." I felt uncomfortable. The air in the room felt thick. I pulled my hand away. "I should get some sleep," I said. "Big day tomorrow." Her expression didn't change. She took another sip of wine. Of course. I went upstairs, locked the door, lay in bed staring at the ceiling for hours. Sunday morning, she was cold, distant, professional again, but different. We drove back to the city in silence. 2 hours without a word. Monday at the office, she didn't speak to me, didn't look at me. By Wednesday, I was off the major pitch. Someone else was presenting my work. My name wasn't on the deck. I tried to talk to her, sent emails, requested meetings. She was always busy, always in meetings, always unavailable. 2 weeks later, HR called me in. There'd been a complaint, inappropriate behavior, unwanted advances. Someone had reported that I'd made Helena uncomfortable during the retreat, that I'd misread professional mentorship as something else, that I'd crossed boundaries. There were text messages, emails, all taken out of context, all making me look like I'd been pursuing her, obsessing over her. Lines like, I really appreciate everything you've done for me, and I don't know what I'd do without your guidance. Suddenly looked different when isolated and presented to HR. I was suspended pending investigation. I tried to defend myself, showed them the full context of the messages, explained the mentorship arrangement, the late-night work requests, the weekend retreat that she'd initiated. But Helena had documentation, witnesses, a narrative that painted me as unstable, obsessive, a mentee who'd confused professional attention with personal interest. The HR director, a woman named Sandra, told me it was best if I resigned quietly. No formal record, no legal action, just go. They'd give me a neutral reference, say I'd left to pursue other opportunities. I refused at first, said I wanted a formal investigation, wanted to clear my name. Sandra leaned forward, spoke quietly, told me that fighting this would mean months of legal proceedings, depositions, testimony from colleagues who would be asked to describe my behavior, my work habits, my state of mind. Even if I was vindicated, eventually, my name would be associated with a harassment investigation. Future employers would find out. Clients would know. "Is that really how you want to start the next chapter of your career?" she asked. I resigned the next day. I couldn't find work for 11 months. Word travels fast in consulting. The industry is smaller than people think. People heard I'd left suddenly. They didn't ask why directly, but they asked around. And they heard things, vague things, enough to make them move on to other candidates. I finally got a job at a smaller firm. Lower pay, no prestige, no path to partnership, but it's something. Last week, I saw Helena on LinkedIn. She just promoted someone new, a young guy, early 30s. His profile said he was honored to learn from one of the best in the business. Grateful for the opportunity. Excited for the journey ahead. The same language I'd used 2 years ago. I wanted to warn him, send him a message, tell him to be careful, to document everything, to never be alone with her. But what would I say? That she grooms people? That she builds them up just to tear them down when they don't comply? Who would believe me? I'm the one who got fired for harassment. I saved his profile. Check it sometimes, waiting to see when his posts stop sounding enthusiastic, when the gratitude turns forced, when the excitement becomes silence. I know exactly when it'll happen to him, because I can still remember the exact moment I realized I was never getting out, and neither will he. I got my best friend a job, and now I can't look at myself in the mirror. His name was Ethan. We'd been friends since college, freshman year roommates. We'd stayed close after graduation, even though we ended up in different cities, different industries. But we talked every week, visited each other a few times a year. He was the closest thing I had to a brother. When he got laid off last year, I told him I'd help. My company was hiring. I was a senior developer. I had pull with management. I talked to my boss, Nathan Briggs, vouched for Ethan, said he was talented, reliable, quick learner, exactly what the team needed. Nathan hired him based on my recommendation alone. Didn't even do a technical interview, just a phone call. 30 minutes, done. Ethan started in March. At first, everything was great. He was grateful, excited. We'd grab lunch together, talk about projects. He'd thank me constantly for getting him in. Said he'd been applying for months with no luck. This job was a lifeline. It felt good to help him. Felt good to use my position to do something meaningful for someone I cared about. But after a few weeks, I noticed Nathan was assigning Ethan to work late nights, alone, debugging legacy code, the kind of tedious, mind-numbing stuff that no one wants to do. Code that was written 15 years ago by developers who'd long since left the company. No documentation, no comments, just thousands of lines of spaghetti logic. "It's normal for new hires," Nathan said when I asked about it. "He needs to prove himself, learn the code base. Everyone goes through it." But it kept happening, week after week. Ethan would be there until 9 p.m., 10 p.m., sometimes midnight, working on tickets that could have waited, on bugs that weren't critical. Ethan started looking tired, dark circles under his eyes, losing weight. He wasn't sleeping well, he said. Stress, pressure. He wanted to make a good impression. Didn't want to let me down after I'd vouched for him. I told him to push back, set boundaries, that no one expected him to work those hours, that it was okay to leave at 6 like everyone else. He said he didn't want to make waves. He needed this job. His savings were gone. He had student loans, credit card debt. He couldn't afford to lose this. Then Ethan started missing deadlines. Small things at first. A ticket that was supposed to be done Friday that didn't get finished until Monday. A bug that slipped through code review. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to be noticeable. Nathan would call him into his office. Private meetings, 20 minutes, 30, an hour. Ethan wouldn't talk about them afterward. Just said Nathan was helping him, coaching him, making sure he understood the standards. "He's been great, actually," Ethan said one day at lunch. "Really patient. Takes time to explain things." But his hands were shaking when he said it, and he'd barely touched his food. By June, Ethan looked different. Thinner, pale, hollow. He'd flinch when his phone buzzed, jump when someone spoke to him suddenly. During stand-up meetings, his voice would crack when he had to give updates. I asked him what was going on, if everything was okay at home, if he needed to talk. He said he was fine, just adjusting, just learning, just trying to keep up. One night in late June, I stayed late to finish a deployment. Around 10 p.m., I heard voices coming from Nathan's office. I was the only other person on the floor, or so I thought. I walked over. The door was cracked open about 2 inches. I could see Ethan sitting in a chair. Nathan was standing over him. Not yelling, not even raising his voice, just talking quietly. But there was something about his posture, the way he loomed, the way Ethan was shrinking into the chair. "You're not improving," Nathan said. "I brought you in as a favor to him. You understand that, right? You're here because I allowed it, and you're embarrassing me, embarrassing him." Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm trying." Trying isn't enough. Trying is what children do. You're a professional. Act like one. You need to decide if you actually want this job. Because if you don't, I have a stack of resumes from people who do. People who don't need their hand held. People who don't need constant supervision. I want to be here. Then prove it. Stop making excuses. Stop missing deadlines. Stop wasting my time. Because next time you disappoint me, I won't have another conversation. I'll just let you go. And then you'll have to explain to everyone why you couldn't hack it, why the friend who vouched for you was wrong about you. I stepped away from the door. My heart was pounding. I should have said something. Opened the door. Intervened. Told Nathan to back off. But I didn't. I told myself it wasn't my business, that Ethan was an adult, that he could handle it, that Nathan was just being tough, pushing him to be better. That's what managers do, right? I went back to my desk, finished the deployment, left without saying goodbye to anyone. 2 weeks later, Ethan didn't show up to work. I texted him. No response. I called. Straight to voicemail. I drove to his apartment that evening after work. His car was there, parked in his spot, but he didn't answer the door. I knocked for 5 minutes. Called his phone again. Nothing. The next day, Nathan called me into his office. Ethan resigned, he said. He was sitting behind his desk, hands folded, calm. Sent an email this morning, 3 a.m., effective immediately. Said the job wasn't a good fit, that he appreciated the opportunity, but needed to move in a different direction. Did you talk to him? No need. He made his choice. These things happen. Not everyone is cut out for this level of work. I tried calling Ethan again that day. For days. Left voicemails, sent texts. Nothing. Finally, his roommate answered. His voice was careful, quiet. He said Ethan had checked himself into a facility, a psychiatric hospital. He'd had some kind of breakdown, couldn't function, couldn't get out of bed. The roommate found him sitting in the dark, just staring at the wall, not responding when spoken to. The roommate didn't know all the details, just that Ethan kept saying he'd failed everyone, that he couldn't do it anymore, that he'd let me down. Let Nathan down. Let himself down. I went to see him once they allowed visitors, 2 weeks after he'd been admitted. The hospital was 40 minutes outside the city, sterile, quiet, the smell of disinfectant everywhere. Ethan looked hollow. He'd lost more weight. His eyes were unfocused. He didn't say much, just stared at the wall while I tried to talk to him. Tried to tell him it wasn't his fault. That Nathan was abusive. That I should have done something. When I asked what happened, he shook his head slowly. I wasn't good enough, he said. His voice was flat, empty. Nathan tried to help me, spent all that time with me. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't meet the standard. That's not true. He was destroying you. No. Ethan looked at me for the first time. I destroyed myself. I let you down. You vouched for me, and I embarrassed you. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that he'd been manipulated, gaslit, broken down systematically by someone who got off on control. But looking at him, I realized he couldn't hear it. Nathan had gotten inside his head so completely that Ethan had internalized every word. He believed it was his fault. Ethan was discharged after 5 weeks. He moved back home with his parents in Pennsylvania, rural area, small town. I haven't spoken to him since. He doesn't return my messages, doesn't answer calls. His social media went dark. I tried reaching out to his parents. His mom answered once, said Ethan was doing better, getting help, but he needed time, space. She didn't say it directly, but I heard it in her voice. He didn't want to talk to me. I was part of what broke him. Nathan is still my boss, still hiring. Last month, he asked if I knew anyone looking for work, someone hungry, someone who wanted to prove themselves, someone who wouldn't coast. I said no, but I think about Ethan every day. I think about how I heard what was happening and I walked away from that door. How I told myself it wasn't my business. How I prioritized my own comfort, my own job security, over his safety. And I think about the next person Nathan destroys, and how I'll know I could have stopped it. How I could have said something, done something, anything. But I didn't. Ethan sent me one text after he left the hospital. Just 3 words. You knew, didn't you? And I've never been able to answer him. They paid me to stay quiet, and I took the money. I worked in HR for a pharmaceutical company. Regional office, mid-sized operation. Around 300 employees across 4 departments. My job was employee relations, mediating disputes, handling complaints, investigating issues, making sure the company stayed compliant with labor laws while also protecting its interests. I'd been there for 9 years. Started right out of grad school. I was good at it. People trusted me. They'd come to my office, close the door, tell me things they couldn't tell anyone else. I helped them, solved problems, made things better when I could. My director was a man named Leonard Quinn, 48 years old, 29 years with the company. Calm, methodical, professional. He had a reputation for resolving things quietly. No drama, no lawsuits, No headlines. The executive team loved him, promoted him twice in 5 years. In November, a woman from accounting came to see me. Her name was Brielle. She was 33 years old, married, 2 kids. She'd been with the company for 6 years. Solid employee. No disciplinary issues. Well liked. She closed the door, sat down, took a breath. She said Leonard had been messaging her. Started about 3 months ago. Compliments about her appearance. How nice she looked in certain outfits. How her smile brightened his day. At first, she thought he was just being friendly. He was her boss's boss. High-level executive. Maybe that's how he talked to everyone. But then the messages got more personal. Questions about her weekend, her husband, her marriage, whether she was happy, whether she ever felt lonely. Invitations to grab drinks after work, coffee in the morning, lunch away from the office. She'd ignored them, kept her responses professional, brief, but they kept coming. Then he started showing up at her desk, unannounced, standing too close, asking about her life, her family, complimenting her perfume, her hair. She said it felt invasive, wrong, like he was studying her, learning her patterns. She wanted it documented, wanted it on record, in case it escalated. I filed the complaint, followed protocol, interviewed her, took detailed notes, collected screenshots of the messages. I told her I'd escalate it to corporate HR, that they'd launch a formal investigation, that she'd be protected from retaliation. She thanked me, said she felt relieved, like a weight had been lifted. Leonard called me into his office the next day. He knew about the complaint. He'd been copied on the initial notification email. Standard procedure. The accused party has a right to know. I saw Brielle's complaint, he said. He was sitting behind his desk, hands folded, expression neutral. I want to address this directly with you before it goes any further. I said nothing, waited. Brielle's going through a rough time, he continued. Marital issues. I've been trying to be supportive. Check in on her. Make sure she's okay. She's misunderstood my intentions. I can see how that happened. I should have been more careful with my wording. But this wasn't harassment. It was concern. She feels uncomfortable. That's what matters. I understand, and I want to make this right. But think about what a formal investigation will do. To her, to the office. People will talk. They'll speculate. She'll be labeled as the woman who filed a complaint. Even if the investigation clears me, the stigma will follow her. You know how it goes. I did know. I'd seen it happen. Women who reported harassment often ended up leaving. Not because they were forced out, but because the environment became unbearable. Whispers, sideways glances, colleagues taking sides, projects being reassigned, suddenly being excluded from meetings, from opportunities. What are you suggesting? I asked. Let me talk to her. Apologize. Clarify my intentions. We can resolve this informally. No investigation. No official record. Everyone moves on. She stays comfortable. Her career isn't impacted. And we avoid unnecessary disruption. I told him I'd think about it. That night, Leonard sent me an email. Subject line: excited to discuss your future. The body was brief, friendly. He said my performance review was coming up, that he'd been impressed with my discretion, my ability to handle sensitive matters with professionalism, that he saw leadership potential in me. Attached was a document, a proposed promotion, senior HR manager, oversight of 3 regional offices, significant raise, $38,000 more per year, better benefits, stock options. I stared at that email for 2 hours. The next morning, I called Brielle. Asked her to come to my office. She looked hopeful, expectant. I told her that after reviewing the situation carefully, considering the evidence and the context, I thought an informal resolution might be best. Less disruptive. Faster. I said Leonard wanted to apologize. To clarify his intentions. That I'd make sure he kept his distance moving forward. That she'd be protected. She was quiet for a long time. Her expression didn't change, but something in her eyes dimmed. "Okay," she said. "If you think that's best." I did think it was best. I told myself I was protecting her from the trauma of a lengthy investigation, from the scrutiny, from the whispers. I was doing her a favor. Leonard apologized to her 2 days later, in front of witnesses, 3 other HR staff members, me included. He said he'd been overly friendly, that he hadn't realized his messages could be misinterpreted, that he had nothing but professional respect for her and regretted any discomfort he'd caused. Brielle accepted, said she appreciated his apology, that she was glad they could move past it. 2 weeks later, she transferred to another department, different building, different supervisor. She said she wanted to change, new challenges. I got the promotion in January. Senior HR manager, new office, new title, new salary. Leonard congratulated me personally. Said he knew I'd continue to handle sensitive matters with the same discretion and judgment I'd always shown. I told myself I'd done the right thing. That informal resolution was sometimes better than formal process. That I'd saved Brielle from months of stress. That Leonard had learned his lesson. But I knew the truth. I'd protected Leonard, and I'd been rewarded for it. Brielle quit 6 months later. No notice. Just didn't show up one day. Her desk was cleared out over the weekend. HR processed her termination as voluntary resignation. No exit interview. No forwarding contact information. I never reached out to her. Never asked if she was okay. Never apologized. Last year, another complaint came in. Different woman. Same department. Same pattern. Messages. Unwanted attention. Boundary violations. Questions about her personal life. Invitations to spend time together outside work. This time, I didn't hesitate. I escalated immediately. Demanded a formal investigation. Refused Leonard's attempts to handle it informally. Corporate launched an investigation. Took 11 months. They interviewed dozens of people. Current employees. Former employees. They found a pattern going back over a decade. Leonard had been doing this the entire time. At least 8 women over 12 years. Maybe more who didn't come forward. And HR had been burying it. Informal resolutions. Quiet transfers. Severance packages with NDAs. No paper trail. No accountability. Me included. Leonard was terminated. But not for cause. They called it a mutual separation. Gave him a severance package. Full year's salary. Continuation of benefits for 18 months. Confidentiality agreement. No admission of guilt. No public statement. He signed. Walked away. Got a job at another company 6 months later. Similar position. Similar industry. I was called into corporate. They offered me a deal. Take a year's salary. Sign an NDA. Leave quietly. Or face termination for cause and potential legal action for failing to properly report and investigate harassment complaints. They had documentation, emails, my notes from the Brielle case, evidence that I'd recommended informal resolution against policy, that I'd benefited professionally after handling the complaint in a way that favored Leonard. I took the deal, signed the NDA, took the money, left. I haven't worked since. That was 13 months ago. I can't. Every job posting in HR feels like a reminder. Every application feels like a lie. How can I claim I care about employee welfare when I sold it for a promotion? The severance check is still in my account, untouched. $83,000. I can't spend it. Every time I think about transferring it, using it, it feels like blood money. Sometimes, I think about reaching out to Brielle, finding her somehow, apologizing, explaining. But what would I say? That I'm sorry I chose money over her safety? That I enabled her abuser because it was easier? That I knew exactly what I was doing and I did it anyway? I know where Leonard works now. I've checked his LinkedIn. He's a VP of Human Resources at a biotech company, overseeing employee relations for 600 people. And I wonder how many complaints have come in since he started. How many women have sat across from an HR representative who's making the same calculation I made? Who's deciding that protecting the company, protecting their own career, is more important than protecting the person in front of them? I could report him, could break the NDA, could go public, but I'd lose the money, probably face legal action, definitely destroy any chance of working in HR again. So I do nothing, and every day, the weight of that gets heavier. The severance check is still in my account, untouched, because spending it would mean admitting I sold someone's dignity for a number I can't even look at. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more stories.